Okay, this is my buddy's old board. It's all banged up, it's well worn, a bunch of dings. Stomp pad is totally falling apart. My friend's getting married, so we're gonna strip off the stomp pad, sand down the whole thing. I'm gonna airbrush it white, and then we're gonna put some cool Pinteresty letters on here, and it will be a sort of a fun like wedding ornament over by like the sign-in table or the gifts or something. It'll be cool. It's very much so appropriate for the kind of island wedding that my friend's gonna throw. She's from Guam. Yeah, cool little board. This thing is so thin, so I'm stoked. Let's do it. Here I'm heat gunning the stomp pad. It helps to break down that adhesive so you can peel it off. The very next thing I do is I'm removing the bulk of all the wax. Instead of using a normal wax scraper, I'm not afraid of scratching this board. We're gonna sand the whole thing. So I just use a plain razor blade. It's a lot faster and more aggressive. So to get that fine layer of wax film off the board, at the end I pour on acetone and scrub down the board with it. It really gets the board squeaky clean. So in the next step, when I go to sand it, there's no residue that will gum up my sandpaper. Here I'm pulling out thin screws to recycle them on another board. I sanded the board to 220 grit to get ready for airbrushing, and along the way I found a few little dings and D-lams. I patched them with fiberglass cloth and poly resin, and after letting them cure a few hours, I sanded them flush. Okay, so I've covered my stand in paper towel so I don't get paint all over it. I've got some fancy Folklore acrylic high quality paint. I'm gonna add a little bit of thinner to this, and let's lay down the first coat. So for acrylics, I really like golden thinner. Found it on Amazon. So this is a Silhouette Studio Cameo 4. It's a sticker cutter machine, and I'm using it to cut out the stencils with my friends' names on it and their wedding date. This is adhesive transfer paper. It's super nice. You put it over the sticker that's been cut, and it helps you pull out all the lettering together in one piece. Okay, so I've placed the words right where we want them. I've clarified with my friend. And so now these are all the positives, the actual letters. So now I'm putting on the negative stencils. So I'm gonna put them down, tape everything off, and then we'll airbrush right through it. To make sure I'm going right down the middle, I actually use a laser level. So I line this up, making sure, I'm gonna start this over here. Making sure I'm going right down the middle of the board. Isn't that nice? Don't look into it. don't get your eyes lasered, honey. Gotta make sure it's perfectly perpendicular to the vertical axis, so it's not like, wow, I just described that in the most nerdy way possible. I gotta make sure it's not crooked. Looks nice and centered to me. Okay, making sure this line is nice and level. This stuff does not want to stick to this paint very well. Okay, so it's super important to make sure the stencil is really sticking down. The stencil material has a really hard time sticking to the paint, so I'm really just trying to push it down and make sure it's adhering as best as possible. And then when I spray, if I get too close, the pressure of the sprayer will actually lift up the sticker material. I'm gonna stay really at a distance Okay, so I've taped it off. I've covered up the board with blankets and all the other boards. There's a hole in this towel. So this sticker material that I'm making the stencil out of, it really is not that sticky. It does a really poor job of adhering to the paint to try to stay in the stencil and not lift it up. I'm using Nita's all-purpose acrylic. I really like this stuff. It works well for painting surfboards. So I'm gonna stay pretty far away. I'm gonna offset pretty good distance and just very carefully make a ton of passes, and let's do it. Okay, this is exciting. It's exciting, but it's also stressful because if the stencil lifted up and sprayed it anywhere else, it's so much work. So it's stressful, but exciting. Hopefully we nailed it. Oh no, we've got some overspray. Son of a gun. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with this overspray. Oh, that is super cool though. Okay, so this looks really good at a distance, but if you get close, you can see a bunch of overspray where the pressure of the spray actually worked its way underneath and splotched out. So it's just not really clean lines. So what we're gonna do, I am so thankful. I didn't anticipate this. I didn't do this intentionally, but I kept all the positives and I'm so thankful I did. So I'm gonna very carefully cover up the initial words with the positive, and I'm gonna airbrush white right over the top, and it will clean up any overspray. Oh, thank goodness I had these. This totally cleaned up the letters and made them look super sick. Very happy with how this turned out. Technically, there was two ways I could have sealed this board. I could have hot coated over the whole board with resin. That would be a ton of work and sort of overkill for what we're going for. This board's not going to be surfed. This is sheerly decorative. So I chose to just seal the whole board with a bunch of coats of clear Rust-Oleum. Ooh, it's dried an hour or two. It's looking really nice. Yeah. Okay, let's flip it. We'll do the other side. I clear coated the bottom of the board off camera, and we got the board done just in time for the wedding.